For the last 3 years or so, the internet has had a huge obsession with lost media. Since there's a decent amount that people don't know about, I wanted to make a deep dive into the interesting and unique rabbit hole that is Rick and Morty lost media. By now, a lot of people have seen or at least know about the original shorts made by Justin Roiland to poke fun at Back to the Future, the real animated adventures of Doc and Marty. These shorts from 2006 give us a glimpse into where Rick and Morty as we know it today came from, but obviously Doc and Morty are incredibly distinct from Rick and Morty, and they had to have been refined for years to come out as a finished product. So we've seen the beginning, and we've seen the end, but we are completely missing years of production in between. Despite how much behind the scenes content we have gotten since season 1, there has never been any official released content from the development of the characters or the early test and pitch animations which helped the show to be picked up in the first place. Recently, Family Guy had its full 1998 pitch pilot released to the public, but Rick and Morty has no clips or screenshots whatsoever and completely remains lost to the internet. However, there is still an early animatic for the show that Justin Roiland worked on before Rick and Morty called Dog World. It has a lot of similar names for characters like the dad being named Jerry and the family having a pet human named Ruffles, later turned into the Smith's pet dog Snuffles in the final show, as well as the mom in the show appearing in a promo for Rick and Morty Season 2, and the show being the birthplace of the Rick and Morty intro theme. Dog World is almost exactly like the Lawnmower Dog episode of Rick and Morty, where dogs were the dominant species, and Rick literally makes reference to it at the end of the episode.
I think it'll be great, Morty. You know, it could be developed into a very satisfying project for people of all ages. I mean, I'd watch it, Morty, for at least 11 minutes a pop.
Roiland had quite a few plans for this show, but he eventually decided to move on due to slow production speed. So while this is the closest thing we have to a transition between Doc and Marty and Rick and Morty, it's still mainly unarchived and has huge differences from the actual show. One of the largest and easiest to lose pieces of content to become lost media is different advertising promos. Rick and Morty is no different, and given how it's been on the air since 2013, it has had a lot of different promotional material over the years. Adult Swim, the network that airs Rick and Morty, is famous for its unique bumpers they play between episodes and commercial breaks. Due to the sheer number of bumpers produced by the network, it has been impossible to archive each and every one of them, and because of that, many of them are now completely lost. Most of the time, these clips probably aired very late during reruns when almost nobody was watching to have been able to save them. The show also had a bunch of different rare and hard to find region specific promos due to limited reach or popularity in these areas. Adult Swim has had a long history of sometimes only airing specific clips just once, with very little to none being saved. A lot of clips come from certain events like holiday themed clips, especially April Fool's clips that get shown once and vanish. Adult Swim has had a lot of marathons of their shows, and many include curated promos for that specific night. This form of lost media is very common because large shows like Rick and Morty are always making new teasers and clips for their show, and they don't ever have that much of a reason to save them, so they end up being the bulk of lost media. Some of the lost clips might be very interesting, never seen before footage, but most of them are likely boring, repetitive ads to the show. If you enjoyed the video so far, please consider subscribing to my channel or hyping the video. It helps a lot, and it would be super appreciated. Every show out there, whether they release them or not, has deleted scenes for a variety of reasons. Whether it's out of poor taste, boring, or just ruins the vibe of an episode. And watching these scenes make you feel like you're watching a completely different show, or just mad that it didn't make the final cut. Some of the deleted scenes of Rick and Morty have been archived somewhat in the form of basic animations. Multiple unseen ones like these exist, but since these ones are just barely available, and the full production of them are unfinished or completely lost, with a lot of them having barely a couple thousand views on YouTube, I wanted to explore a few of them. Now you'll notice most of the time deleted scenes are just extensions of certain stories, or even just slightly altered versions of scenes that actually made the show, but some of them are completely unique and deserve a spotlight. This is probably the most famous of the deleted scenes, and it starts off with Rick and Morty hanging out in the garage, and Rick playing around with portal travel. Morty starts irresponsibly touching Rick's tech, and well, he makes a dinosaur, as the name implies. Rick yells at Morty, Morty has a panic attack, and the dinosaur runs around the garage causing chaos. And then the dinosaur escapes, and Rick pretty much just yells at Morty. The Jessica's death scene starts off with Morty begging for Rick to go and take him to the hospital to see Jessica, who got hit by a car. Morty is literally crying to Rick, but Rick is way too busy watching Family Matters. Morty keeps on crying to Rick until he eventually concedes. When they get there, she isn't looking so good, so Rick suggests shrinking Morty down and injecting him inside of her. This whole scene probably inspired the Anatomy Park episode, and I'm pretty sure this was made very early on because it includes an Adam West Batman type intro for Rick, which is pretty funny. Anyways, the rest of this animation is really low quality, so I'll speed through it. Basically, Rick injects Morty into Jessica's bloodstream, and then there happens to be a TV in the room, which also happens to have Family Matters on it. So Rick is too distracted by that, and Morty gets attacked by monsters inside of Jessica. Alright, this last one is by far the funniest to me. So it starts off identical to the scene from that episode titled Rick's Minutes, where Beth uses the goggles to live her dream life and finds out that Jerry's love for her was meant to be. In the original scene, that's all you see from the other Jerry, but in the cut scene, we actually see from the perspective of the other Beth again, and the Jerry suddenly gets frozen and falls down and shatters. Of course, because of Rick. This one actually had me laughing. I wish this one actually made the show, it would have been a lot funnier. That's all the scenes I thought that were worth sharing. I'll link a video with the rest of them in the description if you want to go check them out. They're pretty funny and definitely interesting. I bet there are hundreds of more scenes like this yet to be leaked, so we'll have to see. Every season of Rick and Morty has pretty much the same format of an intro, which is a few clips surrounded by other clips for that season, but some of them don't even make an episode, sadly. A while back, there were some images that surfaced of a completely different style of intro for the show, a weird, over-exaggerated version of a lab like what Rick's garage is. Rick gives himself some weird shot, Morty adjusting a laser satellite, and a sketch of the family arguing outside of the house. Currently, the actual fully animated intro is lost, and we know that it has been animated because one of the clips can be seen in an early trailer for season 1, but the full thing has not surfaced at the moment. I think it's very interesting how these photos don't even feel like Rick and Morty at all, and it's hard to even imagine them in the show. If you were a Rick and Morty fan and on Instagram in the mid-2010s, I'm sure you played with, or at least heard of, the Rickstaverse. It was an expansive game built right on Instagram, where they made use of tag features and hundreds of different accounts to build out new worlds for fans to enjoy. There were so many Easter eggs that it genuinely took hours to go through and see everything. They even expanded it for a while, adding even more content. Unfortunately, as of 2026 though, the tagging no longer works, and a lot of the accounts associated with the project no longer exist. That's very sad because there was so much content inside of these accounts, and such beautiful art that loads of fans didn't even get to see or experience. Because of the game now being defunct, hundreds if not thousands of artwork has become lost media. The Rick and Morty wiki entry for this Rickstaverse is unfortunately very incomplete with a limited gallery, and if you look for any videos about it, there's nothing but trailers for it. Since it wasn't a traditional game, people still talked about it, but nobody bothered documenting the whole thing, causing a lot of lost content. Interestingly, I found a Reddit post where this user went through and formatted all of the worlds in the Rickstaverse to posters, but sadly they uploaded it to a site that is no longer in service, so even that is gone. If you go to the main page, some of the original posts are gone too, making the page look out of place and incomplete. It sucks that most of these are gone now, but hopefully one day someone can recover a large majority and share them with the world again. Finally, there are these Rick and Morty Subway commercials. Now, there's been a lot of Rick and Morty commercials for fast food over the years, but one of the first ones was going to be for Subway. In 2015, Subway partnered with the show and had 4 entire commercials made. The problem is that the whole deal had to get scrapped because the main focus of these commercials was about a man at Subway who later got arrested. I don't think much more has to be said. Anyways, the commercials currently only belong to one man, Justin Roiland. Yeah. This whole thing is now beyond controversial. So basically, Justin couldn't release these commercials or Subway would sue him, so he placed them onto 8 hard drives and dispersed them randomly. According to Roiland, when he last spoke of this, he checks on their locations regularly and 4 of them have gone missing. The thing is that none of the 4 have ever surfaced, and the fate of these commercials in general is a big mystery. At this point, we are just waiting for someone to find one of them and post it on YouTube.